We have breaking news, folks. You see it on the bottom banner here. It appears that President Trump has picked Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate.
Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio has officially been named Donald Trump's running mate for the 2024 election. But unfortunately for him, his anti-Trump past has come back to haunt him. And it's funny to think that Vance, like former Vice President Mike Pence, have had some pretty terrible but honest things to say about Donald Trump. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends. Several clips to play in this video. This is going to be a lot of fun. So it's official. After weeks of speculation, months of speculation, Donald Trump has officially named the freshman Republican senator from Ohio and hillbilly elegy author J.D. Vance as his running mate. This is what he said on Truth Social, this being Trump. After lengthy deliberation and thought, two things that Donald Trump isn't really capable of, I digress, and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I've decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is Senator J.D. Vance of the great state of Ohio. J.D. honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State University in 2 years, summa cum laude, and is a Yale Law School graduate where he was editor of the Yale Law Journal and president of the Yale Law Veterans Association. JD's book, Hillbilly Elegy, became a major bestseller and movie as it championed the hardworking men and women of our country. JD's had a very successful business career in technology and finance, and now, during the campaign, will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliantly for, the American workers and farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and beyond. So it's official. JD Vance is the guy. Now, we're going to play some really funny clips and compare JD Vance, Donald Trump's current vice presidential running mate, to Donald Trump's former vice presidential running mate and former vice president Mike Pence, because there are some really funny parallels. This is what J.D. Vance had to say in the aftermath of the assassination attempt against Donald Trump, which was further signaling, in my opinion, that J.D. had moved to the front of the pack and was doing everything in his power to do so in terms of Trump's potential contenders. Today is not some isolated incident, says J.D. Vance. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. So immediately in the aftermath, Vance's, even the names are similar, Vance, Pence, even Vance's instincts are to be as partisan as possible and to blame President Biden and the Democrats for the attempted attack on Donald Trump, even though Trump himself initially restrained himself. So you see what Vance was doing. He was trying to say, listen, don't you worry. Right now, you go be presidential and heroic. I will attack President Biden and the Democrats. The thing is, J.D. Vance's past is coming back to haunt him because you may not believe it, but prior to J.D. Vance being named Donald Trump's running mate and being this pro-Trump sycophant, J.D. Vance was an outspoken critic publicly of Donald Trump. It's been pointed out even on Fox News, and we're going to play these clips. He referred to Trump might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible. And because it's so fun to talk about these things, we really need to play some clips to really drive it home and also to watch Vance actually wrestle with this. I want to play a compilation, really, of things first. Let's get into the compilation of things that J.D. Vance has said about Donald Trump. And then we'll play some fun clips of even Fox News hosts confronting Vance about the hypocrisy. So we'll start here. This is a before and after.
As somebody who doesn't like Trump myself, the elites were right about Donald Trump, right? I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
He's the best president of my lifetime, and he revealed the corruption in this country like nobody else.
I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place. I think that he was a good president. I think he made a lot of good decisions for people.
I take it you're not a Trump supporter from what I've read. Am I right? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I didn't vote for Trump.
All around, he was a great president. I'm 37 years old. Certainly the best president of my lifetime.
Wow. Staggering. I mean, again, nothing new in the sense that, Republicans do this crap all the time because they're unprincipled, hypocritical losers, right? Who, will be honest when they think that, they're not going to suffer the consequences. But then when it's politically expedient, then they change their tune. They do a total 180. And hilariously, Vance has been called out on this. even on the Fox Propaganda Network, and I want to point some of this out.
Lengthy piece on you yesterday. Talked about your relationship to the Trumps. They talk about your evolution from calling him loathsome and an idiot to somebody who, frankly, is being floated as a VP pick to join his ticket. Here's a sample of that piece. David Frum, a Trump critic and a former speechwriter for President George W. Bush, who's known Vance for years, described the senator as an intelligent man with an extraordinary life story who has, quote, sunk to the depths of political degradation. Washington Post says you're going to the same negative place that you once criticized Trump for going. Now, he's not changed over the last few years. He's the same guy we've been knowing for a long time. So what's changed with you that you're okay with the behavior and you're supporting him and maybe joining his ticket? Lengthy piece on you.
I just love it. I love it. It's so good to see these people who so often do everything in their power to avoid any accountability or any, call out for their hypocrisy. It's so good that they're even getting it in their safe spaces like the Fox Propaganda Network. Here's another clip.
About past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible. Those are things that the left is going to come after you, and they're probably going to be put in ads should you be chosen.
I agree. They should be put in ads. The Biden campaign should be cramming this stuff. This should be every damn ad. I'll tell you what, the Biden campaign should make it their personal mission to make sure that Donald Trump has to see that every day. Donald Trump obviously knows that J.D. Vance talks some mad crap about him in the past. He's aware of that. And Donald Trump has also shown that he's willing to, despite his enormous ego, set that sort of stuff aside, right, when it's politically convenient. However, the thing about Donald Trump is he's not particularly disciplined. So even in his interactions, say, with Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, other outspoken critics of Trump, you can see the contempt. You can see the rage constantly, the half-hearted pats on the back, the constant subtle acts of dismissal. Trump clearly looks down on his critics, even when he forces a temporary compromise for political expedience, right? You can just see it in the interactions. We've covered this. He makes fun of Lindsey Graham subtly, does the same thing with Cruz. It makes you wonder, could there be some sort of very effective psychological attack in this campaign on Donald Trump's fragile psyche if you constantly play the fact that, oh my God, I'm effectively making this potentially the second most powerful person in the world if I win the election, the second highest ranking government official, somebody who publicly talked smack about me? Do I really want to do that? I think it'd be fun. But the other thing I want to point out is the contrast and the juxtaposition, rather, between J.D. Vance and Mike Pence. Because Mike Pence, of course, is this outspoken evangelical, soft-spoken Christian man who set his principles aside in 2016 to go campaign with, to endorse, to run with somebody who is a serial philanderer, a pathological liar, a malignant narcissist, a fraud, somebody who glorified violence as Trump. All of that was known to Pence about Trump in 2016. You don't even have to factor in the 4 years that they ran the federal government together. So Pence was willing to set principle aside initially, but then towards the end, things changed, right? When Donald Trump tried to pressure Mike Pence into overthrowing the results of a free and fair election. And listen, I'll give Pence credit for not succumbing to that pressure, but it's also the bare minimum, not enabling an authoritarian takeover of a country when you lost the free and fair election. And Pence struggled with it. Like, he's written about it. Like, he wanted to give Trump what Trump asked for, but he just couldn't bring himself to do it. So in juxtaposition to J.D. Vance, this is what Mike Pence has to say about Donald Trump now.
Be endorsing your former president. You were on the ticket with him last time around.
Well, Martha, I appreciate the question. And it should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump.
He's not going to endorse Donald Trump for the 2024 election. His former vice president. Why? Why wouldn't he do that? Well, this is what Pence had to say for his reason.
And then on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution. But I chose the Constitution, and I always will.
The reason that he's not backing Trump isn't just that Trump has, again, because he's not an ideologue, he is not a principled person. He is somebody who is a malignant narcissist and populist who will say whatever. He'll say one thing on Monday, completely contradict himself on Tuesday. Mike Pence tries, I think, to be consistent, even though, of course, he obviously isn't. He too, like Trump, to one extent or another, is willing to make compromises for the sake of political expedience. But I think it's fair to say that Mike Pence is more principled by far than Donald Trump, even though in the end, he's not as principled, nearly as principled as he himself believes. But it wasn't just that, Trump backed away from pro-force, they call it pro-life, I call it pro-forced birth policies and things like that. It's that Donald Trump demanded that Mike Pence put Trump above the Constitution on January 6th. That helped basically break Mike Pence's allegiance to Donald Trump. And so the contrasts and the comparisons between these two men are fascinating to me. And I just think it's interesting that at one point or another in the timeline, Donald Trump's former vice president and his current vice presidential running mate have both despised the man. One last thing I want to say is President Biden's campaign weighed in on this. Donald Trump picked J.D. Vance as his running mate because Vance will do what Mike Pence wouldn't do on January 6th, bend over backwards to enable Trump and his extreme MAGA agenda, even if it means breaking the law and no matter the harm to the American people. I just want to say, Pence has confirmed that he would have done the opposite of what Mike Pence would have done. Vance would have done the opposite of what Mike Pence would have done when he's been asked about it in the past several months by journalists. Like, hey, if you had been the vice president then, would you have done something differently? Would you have rejected certain ballots? Would you have accepted the fake slate of electors? What would you have done? And Vance has signaled that he would have done the exact opposite of Pence. As Trump's running mate, Vance will make it his mission to enact Trump's Project 2025 agenda at the expense of American families. This is someone who supports banning abortion nationwide while criticizing exceptions for rape and incest survivors, railed against the Affordable Care Act, including its protections for millions of people with pre-existing conditions, and has admitted he wouldn't have certified a free and fair election in 2020. Billionaires and corporations are literally rooting for J.D. Vance. They know he and Trump will cut their taxes and send prices skyrocketing for everyone else. Over the next 3.5 months, we will spend every single day making the case that the two starkly contrasting visions Americans will choose between at the ballot box this November, the Biden-Harris ticket, who's focused on uniting the country, creating opportunity for everyone and lowering costs, or the Trump-Vance ticket, whose harmful agenda will take away Americans' rights, hurt the middle class, and make life more expensive, all while benefiting the ultra-rich and greedy corporations. So yeah, there we go. J.D. Vance, officially Donald Trump's running mate. And he, like Mike Pence, Donald Trump's former vice president, talked mad crap about the guy and were once quite honest about him. So hopefully these things will make their way into Biden campaign ads. Let me know what you think in the comments.